Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell. Welcome to Week in Review, a show that we put out, well, almost every week. In this case, we've been out of town for the past couple weeks, so this is the first one in a while. In fact, when I talk about my stuff, I'll be talking about the past 2 weeks. If you've never seen one of these before, this is kind of an index, in a sense, on the Dice Tower. We just talk about the videos we put out, give you some short summaries, and then tell you what we think of them. And then if you want to see more, you can click the links in the description below. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, I'm Zee Garcia. Here's what I did these past couple of weeks. So I did 2 unsung gems in that series of videos. I did games starting with G and games starting with H. This is a line of videos in which I talk about games that don't get enough attention. And then reviews. I reviewed Blast, which I rate a 5 out of 10. This is a 2-player only ladder climbing game. And I thought it was a little too swingy. There was it went on too long. It was not as interesting as I would like. I thought there were some interesting graphical choices that didn't really work out very well. So I was not a big fan of this one. I reviewed The Secret of Monte Cristo, which I rate a 6 out of 10. This is a big box game that feels smaller than it is. It also has a very dry, sort of slightly nonsensical theme, but it just sort of looks languid and slow and not interesting. The game mechanisms are interesting, and I thought that was cool, but it's a game that doesn't really bring anything new to the table and doesn't is definitely overproduced without it justifying that, really. I reviewed Board Game Cafe Frenzy, which I rate a 6.5 out of 10. This one is about running a board game cafe. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek theme. I think the game is a little overproduced, or over-designed, rather. It's got too much going on, and if the game was more streamlined, a lot of what's there is very fun and well put together. You're collecting cards during the first half of the game, and then sort of playing a trick-taking game during the second half in order to collect workers for your cafe and board games and food. But there are too many little rules in the game for it to flow that well or be something I can bring to the table a lot. I reviewed Skulls of Sedlac, and this is, I rate this an 8 out of 10, by the way. This is one of those pocket games from Button Shy. And in this one, you are going to be drafting cards, skulls, and then stacking those skulls in order to achieve various victory conditions. It's very neat. I love the way that the different scoring conditions for the kinds of cards, the way they work off of each other. And then, of course, the placement restrictions, because you do have to build up in a pyramid. I was surprised. It's a quick game. It gives you a lot of return for that time investment. It's only 18 cards. What it manages to do with very little time and very few components is excellent. I reviewed, along with the rest of the fellas, World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King. This is the pandemic-y one. And I rate this an 8.5 out of 10. This is an excellent addition or version or transmutation of Pandemic for WoW fans. My main reservation is that I think the replayability is going to hurt a little bit. I can already see the game, having played a handful of times, seeing the sort of return on differences from one game to the next dropping off. Each game kind of feels the same. But if you're looking for one for a WoW fan or one that's a very good introductory Pandemic-style game, this is a good one. Let's see. Lastly, I reviewed Great Plains, which I also rate an 8.5 out of 10. This is a 2-player game only. An abstract strategy game, really, but with a cute theme, great production values, very attractive, with no luck. It's one of those games. Once you've done setting up the game and the board is random, then it's really just a tactical game. But it's such a quick one. There's such interesting little moments in it. It's very easy to score in the game. I think this is a winner. If you are someone who really likes 2-player games, especially that take up only about 20 minutes and yet the return on that feels fulfilling, then I think you're really going to enjoy Great Plains. And that's it for me, everybody. My name is Zee Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.
Hey everyone, Chris Yee here. This last week, I took a look at quite a few different games. The first one was Zoo Regatta. This one I gave a 4 kids. This is a game that I feel like not only was not fun for adults, but it was not really educational. In fact, in some points, miseducational. And so I didn't really care for it at all. 4 kids, not a great, like a 4 rating for kids, not a great. Not a great thought. But Wilson and Shep was a blue-orange game that I gave a 5 kids rating for. This one, hidden movement type of a thing. I was hoping that it would teach you a little bit more of hidden movement skills, but once again, not super fun as the adult playing it. The kid had an okay time, but it didn't really teach, any relevant skills per se. It was sillier though, and at least it had funnier art than Zee Regatta. Next up, Wolfwalkers the board game. This is my favorite of the kids' games that I took a look at. This one I gave a 6.5 for kids. I like this one. It has an interesting system that the way that you lose the game is by flipping over a certain number of bad tiles, but you also have to look through the tiles to find the good ones to win. I thought it was okay, but it had a really clever little movement system, something that I actually appreciated as the adult at the table, and that I also did feel like was a good teaching skill for kids. So it was something for kids to learn from a game that I thought was unique and clever and fun. Next up, I took a look at Tinner's Trail. This is a 10-year revamped edition of Martin Wallace's game. I gave this game a 7. Tinner's Trail is an auction game, but it has some real cool things going on with it. It has a strange feel to it where you have to be willing to sometimes you auction off for just a bad plot of land. You don't know exactly what's going to be on that plot of land, and there's a lot of kind of bidding without knowing what's there. If you're okay with that, I think this is a fun little economic game, but also the fact that the market's going to kind of change wildly from round to round. But despite all that, it had a lot of really neat, good decisions, and this is a good-looking, 10-year remaster of it. Next up was a game called All-Star Draft. I gave this one a 7.5. I was really surprised by this one. It does not look that good. It's a little bit clunky to teach. It's a little bit weird. I don't really care for the variable player powers in the game, but despite all of that, this game is a ton of fun. It's a hockey-themed drafting game, but really has a very cool little team management thing where you're going to be building 3 teams over the course of the game, and it has a really neat mechanism where you're allowed to kind of swap players in between teams because you're trying to make sets in up to 3 different ways. And then at the end, you do this weird playoff mechanism where you scoop all the players together and you create a mega team at the end. Really, really a nice surprise. And so I would say check out that review if you want to see some really unique, interesting, different game. All-Star Draft 7.5. I took a look at Vinhos, the 2010 original printing of it, with my wife Wendy. We gave that one a 7.5. The original Vinhos is a very tight Vital Lacerda game. Very good. I have a lot of fun with this one. I had a lot more fun than the first time I played it a few years back because it's such a tight action and tight economic game. I would prefer it to be a little bit looser, either action-wise or a little bit looser economically. And so for that reason, I like it. I like it a lot, but I'm really hoping and interested to try out the newer edition, which kind of loosens the bank mechanism of it. And the last thing that I looked at was Wolfwalkers My Story. There's a little 2-player head-to-head card game. I gave this one a 7.5 also. It kind of maybe has too many symbols going on with it, but I found it a lot of fun to play, really engaging, especially once you introduce a little bit of variability with the rules. They have some setup changes that you can use from one game to the next. I like that a lot. I found this game really engaging. It definitely makes me want to check out the movie between this and the other Wolfwalkers kids board game, but very charming and a very clever little game where you're creating a pile of cards or a little grid of cards in front of you, both with scoring conditions and with symbols to actually meet those scoring conditions. So I like this one a lot. So that was my week.
Hello everybody, this is Graeme Anderson, and this week I looked at the expansion for Bonfire called Trees and Creatures. This expansion adds components for a 5th player along with 3 modules that can be mixed and matched into the game. Unfortunately, I didn't find all the expansions to be equally enjoyable, with the trees being by far the best module. Since it was a bit uneven, I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10 and the Dice Tower seal of approval, as the trees really pulled up the other pieces of the expansion. And that's it for this week.
Hey there everybody, it's Mike Delecio, and over the last couple of weeks I didn't have as many of the reviews in, but what I did do was a whole series of character overviews for the game Merchant's Cove. So I covered each of the asymmetric characters in a bit of detail, and then that all culminated in a video where I ranked all of the Merchant's Cove characters in the order of my preference. So if you have an interest in that game, you may want to check those out. As far as reviews goes, I was part of the Foursquare review for the World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King, a pandemic game. I think that's what it's all called altogether. I ended up giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. I liked it. I recommend it. But for this style of pandemic game, and there are kind of different styles of them, I think I slightly prefer the Cthulhu-themed game. I really have no kind of tie-in to the World of Warcraft IP. I feel like if you do like World of Warcraft, you can add another point or so to that review score, because it's really going to be something that is going to be of appeal to people that like that game, and certainly if you also like the pandemic system. All right, well, that's it for me this week. Let's keep it moving.
Okay, so for me, I took a look at Valor and Villainy, which is a beautiful production game. Skybound games always are. It's kind of a big adventure-style game, and one versus all. Now, I love one versus all, but I think this game is actually hampered by it because the one player feels a little bit stronger. I'm not saying they are, but they definitely get to play a lot more than the players, which is meh. But the system and everything else is fine, so it's just shy of being what I wanted. Same thing with Battlegrounds Fantasy Warfare. I took a look at the newest faction, Lords of Vlachold. This is just not a faction that excites me. I still like the game a lot. Miniatures game on cards. I wish they would update the art in the game. This one, basically, you feed off your own people, take wounds to do damage. That's not my style, but if you like vampires. And also, I wish there was more vampires in this set. It's a lot of ordinary people with a few vampires. The Golden Ticket game. Now, this is a silly game based on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where you're trying to find 5 golden tickets in chocolate bars. Crazy entertaining production of this game with all these chocolate bars that come in, and fake chocolate bars and golden tickets. It's really cool. It's very, 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 very light, but good enough to get a 7 out of 10. It's a Small World, another 7 out of 10. Now, this is not related to Days of Wonder's Small World. This is based on the ride at Disney World / Disneyland. And this is a kids game. So I'm ranking this for kids, very small kids, where you're moving boats through and then looking for pictures amongst these big displays. It's really cool. I gave a 7.5 to Steampunk Rally Fusion. This is the sequel / upgrade of the original Steampunk Rally, which I never played. That's a game in which you are building these big steampunk machines and converting dice into other dice and using them to do a race around a track. I like it a lot. There's a lot of cool things. Actually, probably the thing I like the least is I think there might be too much in this box. If I had my druthers, I might have just gotten Steampunk Rally. I don't know that I need all this extra stuff, but then again, it is there. It gives you a million options. We all took a look at World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King, a pandemic-style game based in the World of Warcraft universe. This one I gave an 8 out of 10. I don't know much about World of Warcraft at all, but this is one of my favorite pandemic-style games. It rolls dice, which sounds super lucky, but it's not. And in fact, we did a live playthrough of this last week, so you can see exactly how the game plays. And Picture Perfect from Arcane Wonders. I love this game. This game about where you're taking a picture of a group of people all standing next to each other is just absolutely fantastic. It feels like just something fresh, interesting, new, terrific. Like I said, we played through the pandemic game, the World of Warcraft one, but we also played through several other games over the past week. If you missed it 2 weeks ago, Dan and Cora did Cora's top 70 games of all time, which is fantastic. Check that out. We recently posted the top 10 that we did at Gen Con of our top 10 terrible game names. And I did my top 10 pirate games. And of course, as always, I took a look at different shelves in the Dice Tower library. We did crowd surfing this past week, where we take a look at the Kickstarter project coming up. Look back, where I go back a year, 5 and 10 years ago and take a look at the games there. If you ever want to see kind of a slice of reviewing history, that's what that is. Q&As, Board Game Breakfast, we're back! And we'll have even more this week. Let's keep going. Let's keep going on the channel. But this is the end of this video. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell, and you've been watching Week in Review on the Dice Tower.